got so motherfucking design on right now. Bring it down, make it clap. I got 3 old thoughts on the block.
All right, so are you ready to learn better? Like, way better?
Yeah, I mean, who isn't?
Okay, good point.
Right.
So today we're diving into this idea that, like, your personality actually shapes how you learn best.
You know, it's so true. We always talk about learning styles, but we never really connect it back to, like, who we are as people.
It's like, are you a visual learner or an auditory learner? But it's like, wait, there's more to it than that.
Exactly.
There's like this whole layer of personality that we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, like, once you figure this out, you can actually, like, hack your learning.
Right.
Make it so much more effective.
So whether you're like cramming for some giant exam or trying to learn some new skill for work or even just like picking up a new hobby, this is going to help.
Totally.
Okay, so to kick things off, we're using this thing called the Big 5 personality traits.
Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
I feel like I've taken like those online quizzes,
Yes.
BuzzFeed quizzes or whatever,
Totally.
but I don't really remember what they are.
All right, well, let's do a super quick recap because it's like the foundation for everything we're talking about today.
Perfect.
Okay, so the Big 5, it's like 5 core traits that kind of make up your personality.
Okay, I'm with you.
So first up, we got openness to experience, which basically means like, how curious are you? How much do you love new things?
So like, are you that person who always has to try the new restaurant?
Yes, exactly.
Or are you like, I'm good with my same old, same old?
Exactly. Are you adventurous or do you like routine?
I love it.
All right, then there's conscientiousness, which is all about like organization, discipline, that drive to get stuff done.
So like, if my desk is a disaster, does that mean I'm low in conscientiousness?
Well, maybe.
Huh.
Not necessarily. It can manifest in different ways, but we'll get into that.
Okay, keep going. I'm hooked.
Okay, so next we've got extraversion, which is basically like how much you get energized by being around people.
Okay, so like the classic introvert versus extrovert thing.
Exactly. Are you a party animal or do you prefer a quiet night in...
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, then we have agreeableness, which is all about like how empathetic you are, how much you value getting along with people.
Okay, so like, do you go with the flow or are you always kind of like standing up for what you think, even if it ruffles some feathers?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
And last but not least, we have neuroticism.
Ooh, this one sounds scary.
I know, right? It gets a bad rap, but it's really just about like how sensitive you are to stress and like negative emotions.
Okay, so like, if you're someone who gets really anxious before a test or like freaks out when things don't go according to plan,
That's a good example. Yeah,
that would be high neuroticism.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And this one is super important for learning because like if you're constantly stressed out, it's hard to focus and really absorb information.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right.
Like I know when I'm stressed, my brain just like shuts down. It's like,
Okay.
nope, not happening.
So we're going to talk about all of these traits and how they connect to learning.
But before we get into the specifics, I'm already kind of curious, like how do we actually use this knowledge? Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
To like actually learn better.
Okay, so let's start with one that I think a lot of people are familiar with, which is introversion versus extraversion.
Okay, the classic.
Right.
So it's not just about like whether you like parties or not.
No, it actually goes way deeper than that.
It affects how you learn.
It totally shapes how you process information and what kind of learning environment you actually thrive in.
Okay, so give me an example.
All right, so let's say you're trying to learn a new programming language.
Okay.
If you're super introverted, you might find that like solo study sessions are where it's at.
Makes sense.
Like you can just put on your headphones, get in the zone, no distractions.
Yeah, like put your phone on D&D, like lock yourself in a room.
Exactly. Create that little cocoon.
Yeah.
And for you, that's like peak learning.
But for somebody who's more extroverted, it would be the opposite.
Totally. They might be hitting up those online coding forums, like looking for that back and forth with other learners.
Right, like they need that interaction to really get it.
Exactly. They get energy from that social aspect of learning.
Interesting.
It's not just about being chatty. It's about how you actually absorb the information.
So it's like introverts, they're processing it internally.
Yeah.
And extroverts, they need to like bounce it off of other people.
Exactly. They need that external stimulation.
Okay, that's fascinating.
So just knowing that can help you figure out like, okay, what kind of study environment do I need to set myself up for success?
Right, like do I need to find a study buddy or
Yeah.
do I need to like embrace the solo grind?
Exactly.
All right, so we talked about introversion, extroversion. What about conscientiousness?
Oh, that's a good one.
Does that mean that like every organized person is like a learning superstar?
You would think, right?
Right.
But it's not always that simple.
Okay, why not?
Well, remember, there are healthy and less healthy expressions of every trait. So
Okay.
someone could be super high in conscientiousness and like create this incredibly detailed study plan, color-coded notes, the whole 9 yards.
I feel personally attacked. Like, I'm that person.
But then they might get so bogged down in the details that they actually miss the big picture, or they burn themselves out.
Oh, so it's like too much of a good thing almost.
Exactly.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So it's not just about being organized. It's about using your conscientiousness in a way that actually serves your learning.
Okay, so give me an example of how to do that the right way.
All right, so if you know you're someone who thrives on structure, using tools like Notion or Trello to organize your notes and create a study schedule could be like game changers.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Right.
I love a good Trello board.
But even then, you got to build in breaks.
Right, you can't just go, go, go.
And be flexible enough to adapt.
Right, because life happens.
Exactly.
Things come up.
Plans change.
Okay, so what about someone who's like not naturally organized?
Yeah.
Are they just doomed to struggle?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
They might actually benefit from a more flexible approach.
Okay. Like instead of forcing themselves into a rigid schedule, they might find it more effective to just follow their curiosity.
So it's like embracing the chaos a little bit.
Yeah, kind of like jumping between different resources as their interest peaks.
Okay, so it's all about knowing yourself
Exactly.
and like working with your natural tendencies rather than against them.
That's the key.
Okay, that's really powerful.
And that's what makes this whole personality thing so cool. It's not about labeling yourself or saying one style is better.
Right.
It's about giving yourself permission to learn in a way that actually works for you.
I love that.
So you do you.
Okay, so we've covered introversion, extraversion, conscientiousness. What about openness to experience? How does that factor in?
Oh, openness to experience. That's a fun one.
Okay, tell me more.
It's like the spice rack of the learning world.
Ooh, I like that.
So someone high in openness is like that friend who's always up for trying a new restaurant, exploring a new part of town. They just love novelty and new experiences.
Okay, so adventurous.
Exactly.
They don't like to be bored.
And that translates directly to their learning style.
So how does it play out?
Well, if you're high in openness, traditional textbook learning might feel a little stifling.
Yeah, too boring.
Yeah, too structured.
Too predictable.
Exactly. You might find yourself gravitating towards more interactive, multi-sensory approaches.
Okay, so like instead of just reading about, say, the French Revolution,
Yeah,
they might be watching documentaries, listening to podcasts.
totally.
Maybe even like trying to cook some French cuisine to really immerse themselves.
You got it. They might even find themselves connecting the French Revolution to other historical periods, looking for patterns and themes across different events.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
So they're making those connections.
That's another hallmark of high openness, that love of interdisciplinary learning.
So for someone like that, a course that combines history, literature, and art
Yeah.
would be like a dream come true.
They would eat it up. They'd be the one making all those fascinating connections between the different disciplines, seeing the big picture in a way that others might miss.
That's so cool.
It's pretty amazing.
All right, so if someone's listening and they're like, yep, that's me, what are some things they can do to like really capitalize on that openness?
The key is to embrace that thirst for variety.
Okay, so like don't just stick to textbooks.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to mix and match different learning methods. Read books, watch documentaries, listen to podcasts, take online courses, attend workshops, whatever sparks your interest.
So be a learning omnivore.
Precisely. And don't shy away from subjects that seem unrelated at first glance. You never know what surprising connections you might discover.
That's such good advice.
Now, on the flip side, someone lower in openness might find all that variety overwhelming.
Right, too much.
Too much stimulation.
Okay.
They might prefer a more structured, linear approach to learning.
So they're like, I need my textbook, I need my lecture, give me the information in a clear, sequential way.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, it's just a different style.
Just a different learning style.
The important thing is to find what works for you.
Exactly. Don't try to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit.
Okay, I love that this is so helpful. We've talked about introversion, extraversion, conscientiousness, openness. What about the last one, neuroticism? I feel like a lot of people might be a little apprehensive about this one.
I get it. Neuroticism often gets a bad rap, but it's important to remember that it's a spectrum and we all fall somewhere on it.
Right.
When it comes to learning, neuroticism often shows up as learning anxiety, which can be a real challenge.
Right, that feeling of dread before a big exam or even just getting overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information you need to learn.
Exactly. But the good news is that there are strategies for managing learning anxiety that can be incredibly effective.
Okay, so like what?
Well, for example, mindfulness techniques like deep breathing exercises or meditation can be incredibly helpful for calming those pre-test jitters.
Yeah. I can see how that would work, just taking a moment to like center yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
And what about the learning environment itself? Can that play a role?
Oh, for sure. Like, I know if I'm trying to study in a cluttered, chaotic space,
My brain just can't focus.
totally, creating a calm and supportive study space is key.
Okay, so like what does that look like?
Well, it might mean minimizing distractions, setting boundaries with roommates or family members, or even investing in noise-canceling headphones if you need to block out external noise.
So it's about creating like a sanctuary for your brain where you can focus without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly, and remember, it's okay to take breaks when you need them. Pushing yourself to the point of burnout will only make learning anxiety worse.
Right, it's like that whole thing about like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly, you got to take care of yourself.
Okay, so what about someone who's maybe on the higher end of the neuroticism spectrum? Are there any specific strategies that might be particularly helpful for them?
One technique that can be really effective is the Pomodoro technique. Have you heard of that one?
I have, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
working in focus bursts, right?
Exactly. It involves working in focused bursts of 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break.
This helps to break down larger tasks into more manageable chunks and prevents you from feeling overwhelmed.
Right, because then it's not just like this giant mountain of work.
Exactly. It's like, okay, I can do 25 minutes.
I can do anything for 25 minutes.
Right. And then you get a little break.
I love it. And I imagine setting realistic goals is important too, right?
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others or setting unrealistic expectations.
Totally.
Remember, learning is a journey.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And it's okay to take it one step at a time, celebrate your progress no matter how small, and focus on the joy of learning rather than the pressure to achieve.
Okay, that's really good advice because I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, I need to get an A or I need to learn this skill by this date.
Right.
And we forget to actually enjoy the process.
Exactly. Learning should be fun.
It should be.
It should be exciting.
Okay, this has been so enlightening.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground from introversion to neuroticism.
Right.
But how do all these pieces fit together?
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of how like multiple traits might interact to shape someone's learning style?
Of course. Let's imagine someone who is highly conscientious and introverted.
Oh, right.
They might thrive on creating a detailed study schedule, breaking down tasks into manageable steps, and working independently in a quiet environment.
So they're like the ultimate planner.
Totally. They've got their color-coded notes, their dedicated study space, no distractions allowed.
But what if that same person is also high in openness?
Ooh, that's where it gets really interesting.
How would that change their approach?
They might still crave that structure and organization, but they might also be drawn to exploring a variety of resources, experimenting with different learning techniques, and connecting ideas across different disciplines.
So they might have their meticulously planned schedule, but within that schedule, they're allowing themselves the freedom to explore and follow their curiosity.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of understanding how your personality influences your learning. You can create a learning experience that is both effective and enjoyable, tailored to your unique strengths and preferences.
Okay, so it's not about fitting into a box. Nope. It's about using this knowledge to build your own personalized learning toolkit.
Exactly.
I love that.
So now that we've laid the foundation, let's bring this all to life with some more concrete examples.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's imagine you're trying to learn a new language, like Spanish.
Okay, I'm in.
Are you ready for a little language learning adventure?
Let's do it. Okay, so picture this. You're like diving headfirst into learning Spanish.
Sure.
Let's say you're someone who's like super high in conscientiousness.
Okay, so you're probably already thinking about flashcard decks, color-coded verb conjugations, maybe even like a spreadsheet to track your progress.
Oh yeah, for sure, like a whole
The
system.
whole 9 yards.
But let's add another layer to that.
Okay.
What if you're also like highly introverted?
Totally interesting combo.
How would that shape their Spanish learning journey?
So this person, they might find language exchange partners or like big boisterous classes a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, too much.
Too much stimulation.
Right, they need that quiet focus.
Exactly. So instead, they might thrive with language learning apps
Okay.
like Duolingo, Babbel, those kinds of things.
Yeah, those are good.
That offer structured lessons and personalized feedback.
So it's like they still have that structure,
Right. They still have that control.
but it's like at their own pace.
Exactly. And they can create that quiet study space free from distractions where they can really immerse themselves in the material.
So they're still leveraging that conscientiousness,
Yes,
but in a way that feels comfortable.
exactly.
It allows them to work independently.
It's all about finding that balance.
I love that.
Now imagine someone with a totally different personality profile.
Okay.
Someone high in openness and extraversion.
All right, so like the opposite end of the spectrum.
Pretty much. How do you think they'd approach learning Spanish?
I'm picturing like less solo study and way more real-world interaction.
Yes.
Like maybe they're booking a trip to Spain,
Ooh, I like that.
signing up for conversation groups, maybe even hitting up salsa clubs to practice their moves and their Spanish.
I love it. They're embracing the messiness of real-world learning, using their extraversion to fuel their progress.
Right, they're like throwing themselves into it.
Totally. And they might even be combining their language studies with other interests, like taking a cooking class in Spanish or joining a Spanish film club.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Remember that interdisciplinary learning is a big draw for folks high in openness.
They're like connecting all the dots.
Exactly. They're seeing the big picture.
This is making me realize how limiting it is to think about learning as just one right way.
Right. Like there's no one-size-fits-all.
There are so many possibilities.
And the more we understand about our own personalities, the more we can tailor our learning experiences to be both effective and enjoyable.
It's not about forcing ourselves into a box.
Yes.
It's about designing a learning journey that fits who we are.
Exactly. So you do you.
I love that. Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the one key takeaway you want our listener to walk away with today?
That's simple. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to learning. The key is to become a student of yourself.
Ooh, I like that.
Understand your personality, recognize your strengths and challenges, and then use that knowledge to create a learning experience that is uniquely you.
That's such a powerful message. And you know, it takes the pressure off, too.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the way you learn best and making it work for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you go forward to ask yourself this, what's one thing you can do differently, knowing what you now know about yourself?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Maybe it's tweaking your study environment,
Mhm.
trying a new learning method, or even just giving yourself permission to learn at your own pace. Whatever it is, embrace it and watch your learning soar.
Until next time, happy learning, everyone. So we were talking about learning Spanish.
Right.
Like how different personality types would approach it. So, okay, someone high in conscientiousness, we were saying, they'd have their flashcards and their systems,
Totally.
but they're also introverted.
Right. So they're probably not going to be like jetting off to Spain.
Right, probably not.
They might be more comfortable like finding a tutor online.
Oh, yeah, like a one-on-one situation.
Exactly, where they can get that personalized attention, but still in like a controlled environment.
Okay, so they're still getting that interaction.
Right. It's not that introverts don't like people.
They just need it on their own terms.
Exactly. They need to feel comfortable.
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, online tutoring could be a good fit.
Or like even those language learning apps that have like the little chatbots
Oh yeah, those are good too.
where you can like practice your conversation skills.
Right, but it's still like low pressure.
No judgment from the chatbot.
Exactly.
Okay, so then what about someone who's high in openness and extroversion? We were saying they'd be like all about that real world experience,
Totally. For them, it's like the more the merrier.
right? Like bring on the salsa clubs, bring on the conversation groups.
They might even be like volunteering in a Spanish-speaking community.
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea.
Just to really immerse themselves.
Right. Get that full cultural experience.
Exactly. And they're probably going to be like documenting their whole journey on social media.
Oh, for sure. They're going to have the Instagram stories, the TikToks.
Like, follow me on my language learning adventure.
I love it.
They're just embracing the whole experience.
So it's like two totally different approaches.
Right. But both valid.
Exactly. And it all comes back to personality.
It's all connected.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's amazing how much our personalities shape our learning.
Right. And it's so empowering to know that like there's no one right way to learn.
Exactly.
So if you're out there listening and you're like, man, I'm struggling to learn this thing,
Yeah.
don't give up.
Don't beat yourself up.
Take a step back. Think about your personality, what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
And experiment. Try new things.
Exactly. You might be surprised at what you discover.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Yes, learning should be enjoyable.
Absolutely.
So to wrap this all up, if you're ready to level up your learning game, take a moment to think about those big 5 traits we talked about.
Openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, neuroticism.
And how they might be influencing your learning style.
It's all about self-awareness.
Once you have that awareness, you can start to make choices that support your learning rather than sabotage it.
Exactly. And that's where the real magic happens.
So until next time, happy learning, everyone.